16.
Watch mainstream media news reports about claims the 2020 election was stolen, and you'll first be greeted with a banner that says such claims are false, bogus, or the big lie. Even the former head of cybersecurity for the federal government under Donald Trump says 2020 was the most secure election in U.S. history. Christopher Krebs was eventually fired by Trump.
What's really developed is two different realities. It's the one we live in that's based on truth and trust, and the other that's based on whatever the former president says.
But a recent Rasmussen poll shows almost 1 in 3 American voters now think the election was stolen. If Joe Biden did win fair and square, it was one of the strangest and most improbable victories in presidential election history, one that went opposite to trusted election metrics that go back decades. There's a saying that where there's smoke, there's fire. And when it comes to claims that something was seriously amiss with the 2020 election results, there certainly seems to be a lot of smoke. Where's the smoke? For starters, thousands of sworn affidavits alleging election fraud or irregularities, given under penalty of perjury. New Mexico State University law professor David Clements, a former assistant district attorney on the southern border, says the evidence of wrongdoing in the 2020 elections is far stronger than the drug cases he prosecuted.
I've never had a case with this much evidence, with this degree of quality to the evidence in my entire career.
Clements is assisting a volunteer army of thousands of concerned Americans meeting on the app Telegram under the name America First Audit, building a case for election fraud under the leadership of General Michael Flynn. Another leader of the group, former Army Captain Seth Keshel, an elections expert who correctly picked all 50 states in the 2016 election, says he's uncovered at least 8 million excess votes for Joe Biden. Votes that should not exist.
It's easiest to find in states that track voters, register voters by party. And you can see the trend line where Biden's projected vote total should wind up. I estimate generously for Biden, and you still wind up with a total that's beyond logic.
Keshel says his calculations showed Trump won Pennsylvania, Georgia, Michigan, Wisconsin, Minnesota, Arizona, and Nevada. Whether or not that's actually the case, we do know that Trump carried 18 of 19 bellwether counties, which have correctly predicted the winner of every presidential election since 1980. And yet somehow Trump lost. CBN News election analyst John Waggy.
So these are the counties that we look at. I've been studying these things for more than 40 years, and what we look at are the counties where the presidential winner comes out on top every time.
Trump also carried 4 bellwether states, Florida, North Carolina, Ohio, and Iowa. But Keshel says the most startling thing to him from the election was that Trump won Florida but not Pennsylvania and Michigan. The 3 states have trended together since 1932.
88 years in a row, so 22 consecutive elections, Florida, Pennsylvania, and Michigan trend together. And then this year is the one where they no longer trend together.
Other indicators that showed Trump should have won, his overwhelming strength in the primaries.
Trump was not a weak incumbent, regardless of what the media puts out there. Trump had one of the highest shares of primary vote ever, 94%.
Another indicator for a Trump victory was his gaining a record 11 million more votes in 2020 than he did in 2016.
From my perspective as an analyst, things have never added up about this election. I mean, Joe Biden campaigned from his basement, and he finishes with far more votes than his predecessor, Barack Obama. It doesn't make sense.
Election audits have been underway or are being fought over in 6 states. The audit fight in Maricopa County, Arizona, has led to a new investigation of the county by the state's Republican Attorney General, even as the audit has been blasted by the state's Democratic Secretary of State, who calls it a sham.
I think it's doing a lot of harm, not just to elections here in Arizona, but there are election officials across the country watching what's going on here with a lot of concern because they are honestly writing the playbook because they want to do this in other states.
An audit is also underway in Fulton County, Georgia, the home of Atlanta and reportedly so rife with corruption, state lawmakers may attempt to take over the county election board. One of the leaders of the movement to uncover election fraud, MyPillow founder Mike Lindell presented his evidence at a cyber symposium this week and offered $5 million to anyone who could prove his evidence of a stolen election was wrong. Some in the media have now decided the inventor of the MyPillow is a threat to the nation. But it's interesting to note who else has said our election process is not secure. Democrats, a lot of them, after the 2016 election.
These voting machines can be hacked quite easily.
You could easily hack into them.
But researchers have repeatedly demonstrated that ballot recording machines and other voting systems are susceptible to tampering.
Even hackers with limited prior knowledge, tools, and resources are able to breach voting machines in a matter of minutes.
We know how vulnerable now our systems were. I know the hackathon that took place last year, where virtually every machine was broken into fairly quickly.
I actually held a demonstration for my colleagues here at the Capitol, where we brought in folks who, before our eyes, hacked election machines.
It's not clear how America's elections suddenly became so secure in 2020. But if they really are secure and nothing was amiss in Joe Biden's victory, no one should fear an audit. Dale Hurd, CBN News.